seems to be a theme amongst all of my videos. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jaclyn. This is a YouTube channel all about my DIY fashion endeavors, mostly knitting and sewing. In this video, I'm going to be showing you all about my process for making a DOEN-inspired top. Here's the top. I think it is super cute. I love the scallop detail on it, and recently my Lyrical Fabrics purchase has led me to some pointels in my life. Lyrical Fabrics is a fabric store based out of California, and they really specialize, I feel, in these pointel fabrics. Excuse all the cat hair on them, but I have cats. So they really specialize in this pointel fabric that has these eyelets. It's like a stretchy knits fabric. If you don't know what pointel is, a stretchy knits fabric that has these little eyelets in them. Some more eyelets than others, some more heavy than others. They have a lot of options and colors, and they frequently restock this. I feel like this is a really unique selling point of Lyrical Fabrics. I've not seen pointels stocked at other fabric shops online, so definitely give them a look if this is something you're into. But when I saw this fabric, it really reminded me of that more Doen aesthetic, which kind of has that more like bohemian, romantic, very feminine, like traditionally feminine look to it. And I saw this top on their website. I'll put a picture on the screen, and I think it will just be a fun one to do. That like shell scallop stitch around the neckline, I think is just such a cute detail. And Lyrical Fabrics has a blog post on their website that shows you how to achieve this look. Recently, I finished a version of this top, but I made it into a cropped length, like ultra cropped. So it really just skims the top of my pants when I wear them. But I want to make another one that is long enough for me to tuck into jeans, tuck into skirts, and maybe has like a slightly longer sleeve to it, something more in the line of this, whereas the other one I made was like a really short, almost cap sleeve actually, like top. And I love how that turned out. But again, I had bought two, so I just want to make another one. So I'm going to use my white fabric for this version of the top. So to achieve this look, I'm going to be using the Tilly and the Buttons Agnes top. It is a scoop neck top. I actually have made this several times, and I wore this top on purpose so that you can see what it looks like with zero modifications. This is the Agnes top right here. Actually I did make one modification, and I made the neckband a little bit skinnier. I think if you sew it as it's written, it's like a thicker neckband, but this one's really thin. But I did not make this neckband shorter, as I have started to do in many of my later iterations of the Agnes top. And you can see the neckline gapes a little bit. And what I like to do is cut my neckband a little bit smaller. It is already smaller than the neckline, but I think it's like 10% smaller than the neckline. And I started cutting my neckbands about 75% of the overall neckline, which has resulted in something that's a little bit tighter to the neckband, so there's not as much gaping in it. But it's not that bad, like you can see, it's just a little bit, but I think it does elevate the overall piece in the end, and it just looks like a cleaner finish. So, but this is what you can see here. This is what happens if you don't change it at all. This one is just the pattern cut outright. It's meant to be a scoop neck top, but I have a lot of height in my shoulders. So on me, it's not like super low scoop, and the Doen Inspiration is quite a low scoop. I don't think I'm going to cut it quite as low as that Doen top, but I do definitely want to reduce it at least another 2 inches or so from the way the pattern is originally designed, just because I like that look, and I think it'll be really cute for the top. So let's jump into making it. I'm going to show you the additional mods I want to make compared to the one I recently finished, and then we'll get into making this Doen inspired top. So here's my inspiration for this top that I'm about to start. This is the Romy Tee by Doen. It's this really gorgeous like scalloped edge. This may even have like a crochet lace detail added to it. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna achieve that look by doing a scallop stitch or a shell stitch using my machine. But it's this really beautiful scoop neck top with long sleeves, and it's a very slim fitting top, so she's got it long enough to tuck into trousers, which is what I want to do for mine. The only changes that I want to make here are that I think the scoop is a little bit too low for me. I want to make it just a little bit higher, and then the sleeves are too long. I want to do a short sleeve or maybe like a half length sleeve. fabric I'm using. It's a gorgeous white pointelle that I got from Lyrical Fabrics. This one in particular is from their Diana range. It's got smaller eyelets in it, so it's not quite as see-through as other options that they have. For example, this one is the Gabby pointelle, which has more eyelets in it, so it will have more of a see-through effect. So this one is better if you want to make something with a little more heft to it. I mean, it's still white, so, you know, take that what you will, but I do think they sell this in black and in other colors as well. It's a really wide fabric, so for 1 yard, you can get more out of it. Okay, before I get too into smoothing this out and making it straight, I'm gonna see if I actually need this much to cut either my front or my back piece. It's probably get away with less, yeah. Directional prints or fabrics that have pattern on them can be trickier sometimes when you have to pattern match it on your pieces, but I love fabrics with patterns on them, like stripes or these eyelets, you know, or something like that, because then you have something printed on the fabric to like help you line it up to make sure you're cutting it straight and on grain. I do know that sometimes fabrics are misprinted, but for the most part, it can be, I think, a helpful tool to make sure you're cutting things out on grain. Probably still go a little bit more. I'm really thrifty with my fabric, so I like to squeeze out as much as I can from my fabric purchases, and if I'm able to get something else out of this because I'm thriftier, sometimes it makes all the difference. Too much? No, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to smooth this out, get this straight, and then I'm going to pin my first pattern piece on, and I'm going to repeat that with the rest of my pattern pieces. Neckline looks like. I've gone ahead a long time ago and cut my pattern piece down to the size 1 neckline. That's probably about 1/2 inch of difference between the 1 and the size 4. But this is not enough to achieve the look that I showed you on the first one that I made. I generally cut about another 2 inches in order to get a scoop that low, which may look extreme, but on my body, it's really not. So what I end up doing is I don't want to cut the pattern anymore, even though I tend to alter it every time I make it, so maybe I should just trace off another. But what I tend to do is measure 2 inches down from this point right here, and then kind of draw a line, like grade it up smoothly up to the rest of the neckline up here, and that works really well for me. Now I'm ready to get sewing. So this is where I landed on the sleeve length. The one that I showed you that I just made recently is probably like about here. It was a really kind of short cap sleeve style that I cut it into. This one I decided to go a little bit longer because I think it's just going to give it an even more of that like sweet demure look that I love about the DOEN-INSPIRED. I'm going to do the scallop edging along the bottom edge here. And then the other thing that I need to take care of before I can start sewing is I want to go ahead and cut my neckline shorter. So let's go ahead and do that. So now I'm just going to drape this over myself, see what I think about the shape, and then once I'm happy with it and just kind of fit angle here and there, I will start constructing. Here's what it looks like draped over myself so you get the idea. I think it's the perfect shape. It's actually a little bit higher than the one that I made, but that's okay. I think it'll be just fine. It's a cute scoop. I own both a sewing machine and a serger, and I'm going to be using the serger to construct the majority of this garment. You can use a regular machine. The first time I ever made the Agnes top, I constructed it entirely on a regular machine. So don't think that you need a serger to make this project. And then one quick note before I get started, the instructions of the Agnes top in particular tell you to stabilize the shoulders using ribbon. I've done this in the first iterations of it, and I have not done it before. I can't say it honestly makes any difference. So I have since started skipping this step because I don't find that it stretches out. Maybe if you have a really heavy knits fabric, you might need to stabilize the shoulders, like if it's a super dense knits fabric maybe, but I've not had an issue with it. So I'm gonna skip that step. I don't cut all of my notches in patterns, but I do like to cut the ones for sleeves because I feel like sleeves can be a little bit tricky in what's the front and what's the back of the sleeve, and it definitely makes a difference when you're wearing it. So I like to cut the notches for my sleeves in particular. Sew the shoulder seams using my serger. I don't need to test the tension for this particular fabric because the last project that I made with it was this one. These fabrics are so similar. I'm sure that the tension that it has right now is just gonna be just fine for this one. Next up are the steps involving the neckband. As I mentioned, I need to wait to cut this out after I can measure what the circumference of my neckline is, and then I'm going to figure out something between 70 and 75%. I think last time I made this top, I did a neckband that was 73% of the overall neckline, so I'm probably gonna do that again. So I'm just gonna take my flexible measuring tape, measure around the edge as best I can, and then multiply that times 0.73, and that will give me the length that I need for my neckband. Now that I've cut my neckband, the next part I'm gonna tackle is probably the most important detail when it comes to sewing this as a Doen-inspired make, and that is this adorable shell stitch on the edge of the neckline. I have a piece of scrap fabric here. I do have a photo that I took of my machine settings when I sewed this one, so it's probably the same, but just in case, I want to test it out on this little scrap of fabric first. I'm going to link in the description box to the tutorial post for how you can set up your machine to do a shell stitch. You do need a shell stitch feature on your machine, if I'm not mistaken. But for me, I have the tension cranked all the way up as high as it will go, the zigzag as high as it will go, and my stitch length is a 2 with the shell stitch. And that gets this effect right here for me, which I really loved. I tested out a few of like stitch length and zigzag depth before I settled on this kind of machine setting, and this is like the look that I liked the most. So it doesn't mean that that's the hard and fast rule for how you have to do it. You can get like a smaller scallop by shortening your stitch length, I'm guessing. So there's plenty of options for you, but this just happens to be the way that I liked to do mine, and so that's what I'm gonna do again for this project, but I'm gonna test it out on this scrap first. Yeah, I think this looks really good. So on mine, it puckers a little bit like this, but once I iron it or steam it gently, this just falls right into a smooth look. So let me just do that for you so I can show you the difference. Here you have it. That's what it looks like when I give it just like a little gentle steam, gentle iron. It takes away the puckering big time. So I think that's just such an adorable look for a neckline. Neckband pressed in half. Now I'm going to sew the shell stitch on the neckband, and then once it's finished, then I will attach it together, the ends in a circumference, and pin it to the top. This next bit is what requires all of your patience and attention and faffing around, and that is pinning the neckband to the neckline using so many pins along the way, like pin within an inch of its life. And sometimes I'll pin and repin the neckband like 3 different times. Neckband pinned to the neckline, and technically the next step is to use my regular machine or serger to stitch this down to the opening and kind of finish off the neckline area. But since my machine is already set up for the shell stitch with the tension threading and all that sort of thing, I'm going to go ahead and sew the scallop edging along the sleeve band first. Basically, all I'm doing is I'm going to turn this up like about 1/2 inch or so and press it, and then sew that shell stitch on the edge of the sleeve. And that creates the cute little sleeve detail that I want. Now that the neckband is attached to the neckline, I think I'm gonna stop here and take a little bit of a break, make some lunch. I've been working on this for a few hours now. I try whenever I'm like sewing for a while to like take breaks, come back to it fresh, always feel excited about the project, just because I feel like when I push myself to keep going, I end up cutting corners or make mistakes more easily. So I'm gonna take a break now and come back to this either later tonight or maybe even tomorrow, we'll see. But yeah, I made good progress today. All I have left to do is inserting the sleeves, sewing the side seam, and the hem, and a label. I consider myself a pretty productive sewist, but I'm not like purposely trying to be fast with anything anymore. I think back in the day, I really, especially when I had roommates, I had to finish everything that I could like in a weekend day because I didn't have a permanent setup for my sewing machine. But now that I have this like wonderful crafting space, there's really no need to push myself to finish something in a day. So I focus now more on craft, slow sewing, trying to do the best that I can for the project that I'm working on. That being said, the Agnes top is a really fast top. It comes together really quickly. You could easily sew this project in a day, especially if it's already cut out. But like I said, I just like to take my time with things, not go super fast, work on these sweet little details like the scallop edging where I can. And yeah, just like take my time with things. Hi guys. So it is day 2 of me working on the Agnes top, my DOEN-INSPIRED dupe project. The last time I left you, I had finished the neckband right here. This one's a little bit higher than the first version of this that I made, which is fine. I do wish it was a little bit lower, but it'll be in notes that I make for next time. It's not enough of an issue that I'll go back and redo it. And as you can see, the scallop is much more pronounced now that it has been slightly stretched to fit the neckband better. And no gaping whatsoever when I try it on. I did a double top stitch. In hindsight, I kind of wish I had left it at one. I feel like the double top stitch gives it more of a sporty look, whereas the one row of top stitching I feel was a little bit like sweeter. But again, these are details that are not gonna make or break the outfit. I just like the top stitching in general and the effect that it gives it. So now all that's left is to insert the sleeves, so the side seams, hem the garment, and add my label. So I'm gonna get to work on that now. Here is the finished top. Here's a close-up look at those scallop details, both on the neckline and on the sleeve. Sorry, it's a little bit dark in this room today, so I hope you can see it properly. I love it with these jeans. I feel like this looks just like my inspiration, because she's wearing the white top and this really dark wash denim. These are the Helene jeans by Anna Allen. Another great pattern. But yeah, I think this turned out so well. I just love the eyelet. I purposefully, so I think I will say that this fabric, if you're gonna make a top out of it, probably works best with some sort of like t-shirt bra or smooth bra. Most of mine are lacy, so I don't have one of those kinds of bras, but you can see a little bit of the patterning of the bra underneath it, but I didn't want to hide that. Just want to be like to show you like the ins and outs of the fabric. Interestingly enough, this is the heavier pointel between the two that I have. The other one was a lighter weight one. The Gabby was lighter weight. This one's a little bit heavier. And I feel like you can see the texture of my bra underneath it more easily on this thicker one than you can on the lighter weight one. So that is an interesting thing to note. But this is nothing, like I said, that can't be solved by just picking up a t-shirt bra or wearing like a camisole underneath to like smooth it out if you really care about that sort of thing. But it's not a big deal to me. But yeah, I hope you agree that this project turned out really, really well. Again, I find the Agnes top to be such a beginner friendly project. So if you ever wanted to like dip your toes into sewing and you haven't yet, the Agnes top would be a really great place to start. It was one of my first ever clothing sewing projects, and I still use the pattern a lot to this day. But yeah, these little details I think can elevate it so much. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.